In this video, we're going to be going over knee health. I'm going to be giving you 3 exercises that need to be inside your training routine to ensure that you have good, strong, healthy knees. Next, we're going to be going over the anatomy of the knee, and I'm going to explain in depth why these exercises are beneficial to your knees. And lastly, I'm going to leave you with some references. So if you're looking to continue to progress your training or find more resources, you know where to go. The first exercise that we're going to be going over is referred to as a Copenhagen plank. To perform this movement, you'll be in a side plank position, and you need to find a stool, a bench, a chair, something that you can be able to post one foot up on. But you want to ensure that your foot's going to be posted at roughly your other shoulder height whenever you're in that side plank position. I highly encourage you to find something that your bottom foot can also be directly underneath your top foot whenever you're performing this exercise. So from the side plank position, with that foot posted up on top of the bench or stool that you're utilizing, you want to go ahead and raise your hips up off the ground till you have your shoulder, hip, and knee in good alignment. Now, Copenhagen planks are not meant to be done isometrically, meaning that we're going to be holding them in place. Instead, we want to continually move that lower leg back and forth as if we're marching or walking. What this is going to do, it's going to force that hip that's holding the upper leg up, force it to continually adjust, continue to search to find balance, and greatly increase the amount of efficiency that we're getting out of this movement whenever we're training for it. This is a great exercise, and it's actually very easy to scale up or down. With your foot on, it's obviously one of the harder ways to do it, but if that's too difficult for you and you're looking to scale it down, you can place your knee up on the bench and have that be the supporting post. Just make sure that your other knee is directly underneath and you still have room for that bottom leg to be able to travel back and forth. I don't ever recommend that you do this exercise for reps. This is always a time set whenever you're doing it here. If you want to do it to failure, that's fine, but try to equalize, making sure that you're getting equal amount of work on both sides. The next movement that we're going to be going over is called a Z lunge or a 3-point lunge. To perform this movement, make sure that you have a good post that you can grab a hold of somewhere around chest level. You also want to ensure that you can drive your toes up against this post and have them directly underneath your hands. The foot that's not up against the post, you want to slightly raise it up off the ground. Now, we're going to take and do a rear lunge while we're holding on to this post. The key to this movement, as you're lunging backwards, you want to have your front knee touch the wall and your back knee touch the ground at the same time. And that's why this is done at a very slow pace. Now, once they have both touched the wall and the ground at the same time, you can fire back up to the starting position. But then once again, in a very slow manner, lower yourself down to the point where the front knee and the bottom knee touches their respective points at the exact same time. They're there, fire back up to the starting position. You can do this exercise for either time or reps. Either one is perfectly acceptable, but same thing. Make sure that you're getting equal amount of work on both sides. The next exercise that we're going to be going over to is referred to as hamstring gliders. There's numerous amounts of movements and exercises you can utilize to encourage hamstring activation, which will lead to better knee health. Hamstring gliders are an easy one that you can do almost anywhere. To utilize them, you just need either a towel or a sock, or you can use a gliding disc. That's what I'm using here in this one. And you want to be laying down on the ground looking straight up at the ceiling. I highly encourage you to go ahead and make a fist and drive your pinkies down into the ground so that way you're able to support and hold your whole body up. You want to have one foot flat on the ground with your heel dug in, and the disc or towel or whatever you're utilizing is going to be under your other foot. I generally recommend that you're going to start with your heel as close to your butt as you can. Whenever you're ready, you're going to drive your hips up towards the ceiling to where you have that good hip extension, you have shoulder, hip, knee alignment, and then the foot that has the disc on it, you're going to begin pushing it out and try to control it as it's pushing out. As you're doing that, your hips are gradually going to fall, but the leg that you're extending, try to keep that hip in line with the shoulder and knee while it's extending out. Try to get that heel as far away as your hip as you can. Once it's all the way out there, if you're able to, then begin to start pulling back in until the point where you're able to get your heel as close as you can to your butt. That would be 1 rep, or you could do this for time. Either one of them is perfectly okay, time or reps. But this does a really good job of isolating and making sure that your hamstrings are really active whenever you perform this movement. Note, whenever you're doing this, hip extension is very important. When any time that we're addressing our hamstrings and trying to train them, we want to ensure that the glutes are activated, that your butt muscles are activated, and they're having to work too. That's a very vital thing that you need to ensure that you have inside this movement whenever you're doing it. Now, let's move on to the anatomy of the knee. It is truly an over-engineered hinge joint. Whenever you look at it, it is made to completely support your whole body's weight, just one of them alone. This joint is the biggest joint inside a human body, and it also connects the 2 longest bones inside a human body. And for most studies, it says that the most amount of force that the human body has the ability to produce, it has the ability to transmit that force through it. So while it doesn't have a lot of lateral movement, back and forth movement inside of it, what it does do in the directions that it does, it produces more power than almost any other joint inside of our body, except for the hip. But like most other joints inside the body, if we actually want to truly improve the health of that joint, we need to address the one above and below it. And that's why the exercises that we picked are the ones that we did. Starting off with the Copenhagen plank. Whenever you saw this, you may have looked at it and said, this is not going to address and improve my knee health. Well, it really truly will. The hip isn't responsible for ensuring that the hip, knee, and ankle are all good in alignment, making sure those train tracks are running straight. If they're not, if they're slightly out of tilt, even just a little bit, that greatly increases the amount of wear and tear that the knee has to account for in its day-to-day usage. This greatly decreases the efficiency of the other joints that are associated with it. So one of the first things that we need to address whenever looking to improve our overall knee health is to ensure that the hip has the ability to hold all three of those joints in line and keep them in good, efficient movement patterns. Next movement, the Z lunge, address the joint below it. Now, what we're really trying to do here is we're trying to improve ankle mobility. That's what we're doing whenever we're lunging backwards and we're pushing our knee forward up against that wall. We're pushing it out to where our toes are at. This goes a long way in forcing that ankle to, one, get stronger, and two, increase its mobility as that knee's pressing forward. For a lot of people, they're going to discover a lot of discomfort whenever they're trying to do that. And that's an immediate sign that the muscles that are responsible for ensuring that ankle mobility are really stiff and they're really hindering inside of it. This, once again, forces a lot of stress and a lot of force back up into the knee joint. The foot itself not being able to correctly do what it's meant and designed to do, well, now there has to be a joint that has to account for that force. A lot of times that's the knee. This is, once again, excessive wear and tear that has to go through it. But let's actually look at something that truly strengthens the knee itself, and that's why we have hamstring gliders. The hamstring is a muscle that runs down along the back of our leg. And this muscle actually crosses the knee joint itself. So if we're really looking to increase the musculature that's truly associated with making sure our knees are good and healthy, this is a type of exercise that we need to have inside of our routine. Now, the hamstring itself very much copies the bicep, and that's why it's important that we not only find some way to have that good extension out to where it's having to account for all that force, but it also needs to curl back in. So as you're starting to look and find other ways to progress and improve your hamstring training, think of the things that you do for your bicep and find some other way to incorporate that same movement into your hamstring. I do want to point out that one thing that makes a world of difference whenever we are talking about hamstring training is to ensure that you have both power training and endurance training inside of this joint. You want to make sure that it's getting strong and that it does have the ability to maintain that strength for a very long period of time. Don't solely focus on any one area for the hamstring. It is really a muscle that has the ability to do a massive amount of work if it's allowed to learn and grow and train into those. So now that we're at the end of the video, let's go over some references that I really think that you need to look to if you're trying to find more information about improving your overall knee health. And the first one is going to be Squat University. If you're a lifter, you may already be familiar with a lot of his work. He delves in depth as a physical therapist on how to move correctly and how to squat, which is absolutely one of the best exercises that you could have for your knees. How to squat correctly, how to have a lot of these movements correctly, and if you can determine that you have deficiencies in your movement, what are the corrective exercises and training that you need to utilize to ensure that you build up that physical resiliency so that you can perform these movements correctly. The next one I want to give you, his name is James Dunne, and he's a physical therapist and a running coach, and he's over in Britain or Scottish, and he does a very good job of giving you very short videos that are very instructive and communicating very efficiently and going in depth in that time and addressing the mechanics associated with running or walking and how those movements are related to ankle and knee, hip, and shoulder and back health. So why have I given you two completely contradictory resources to look at? If you are a lifter, somebody who spends a lot of time picking heavy weight up inside the gym, and you notice that you're starting to wake up now in the mornings with knee pain, or in the afternoon you're starting to throb or they're just worn out, I would highly encourage you to start to train in uncomfortable areas, and that would be a running coach. Look at some of the things that he's talking about and teaching about. This can go a long way in relieving a lot of the stress, wear, and tear that you're having built up inside that joint. And vice versa, if you're a runner and that you've noticed that your knees are getting tired and are starting to ache a lot, and you're having that pain and inflammation associated where you're getting lots of miles in, it's probably a good idea to start incorporating some strength training inside of your routine. In that case, Squat University would be a great place for you to go. So that way you can start to cover the mechanics on how to squat and deadlift and have a lot of these movements done correctly with minimal risk of injury and high return on your effort that you're putting into it. But either one, If you are comfortable inside your training, then your growth is going to be hindered. It's a very important thing that if you're trying to address and improve your overall physical resiliency, that you spend time training in areas that you already feel uncomfortable in. And for lifters, a lot of times that's running. For running, a lot of times that's lifters. But this wraps up the video. My name is Benjamin Morris. I'm a tactical strength and conditioning facilitator, a military master fitness trainer, a military master resilience instructor, a former Army drill sergeant. Preceding my name anywhere I go is the title Pacific Best Warrior. I thank you very much for your time, and out.